welcome everyone to our 1 p.m. Eastern CE course that's going to start here in about a minute or so. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack, and we're going to wait another minute or so. We have dozens of people joining by the moment here, but you're in the right place. So welcome to our 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific CE course hosted by Dr. Paul Etchison, entitled Systemize Your Patient Experience, a tested and proven way to blow your patients away. And again, we still have dozens of people arriving. You're in the right place. The good news is your cameras are intentionally muted, as well as your microphones, so no embarrassing moments for you. But we do want this program to be interactive in nature. And so we encourage you to use the Q&A feature or on the Zoom panel. If you're using a PC or a tablet, that's going to be in the bottom of your screen. If you're using an iOS device, it's most likely going to be in the top. But we do want you to ask questions, and we are going to award a CE credit for this program as advertised. So again, about another 30 seconds, and then we'll get started. We don't want to penalize the people that are here on time. All right, Dr. Etchison and Jeff, are you guys okay if I proceed?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so welcome to our 1 p.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific CE course, sponsored by Darby Dental and CareStack. This is Jim Gerson from CareStack. The title of our program today in front of you is Systemize Your Patient Experience, a tested and proven way to blow your patients away. And our instructor today is Dr. Paul Etchison. And so a couple of quick items, and then we're gonna get right into the program. We are gonna award a CE credit. You're gonna have to be here for the duration of the program. In a few minutes, we're gonna lock the program so that if you're here, you can remain in. And for those that are here to the end of the hour, you will get your CE credit, and we'll give you that code. And at that time, you're going to log back into CE Zoom, and you're going to complete a quick survey if it's required by your state. And then the CE credits are going to be issued directly by CE Zoom. For those of you who have a little bit more time today and you want to hear about CareStack, after we've awarded the 1 CE credit, we're going to have a 15-minute demo led by my colleague, Dan Hall. And to entice people to remain, we're going to award 2 $75 Amazon gift cards. And no, Jeff, you can't participate in that, okay? You're excluded. So before we get started with Dr. Etchison's program, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jeff Daly from Darby, for a quick word from our sponsor.
Sure. Thanks so much. And thanks everybody again for making time for today's presentation. Darby's excited once again to partner with CareStack and help support Dr. Etchison's presentation today, geared towards helping practices create a unique differentiator through patient experience. So the shameless plug on Darby is what you may already know about us, is that we partner with our customers to help keep their dental supply costs down. What a lot of practices are still surprised to learn is that over the past 10 years or so, we've been focused on building a suite of solutions to help our customers resolve the challenges that they face on a daily basis. The latest edition of that is our entry into the education space, as you're witnessing today, but also included our IT services, equipment repair and installation, as well as a full implant and surgical offering. And finally, maybe most important, given what's going on in the world today, just a reminder that for our entire 70-year plus history, all of our account managers have worked completely remotely with our customers. And what we hear from our customers is that they enjoy interacting with our team on a schedule that works for them and the way that works for them. And in today's world, it eliminates any unnecessary foot traffic in the practice. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more how we might be able to help your practice, please definitely feel free to reach out to any one of our well-trained experts, and we'd be happy to talk. So with that, Jim, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Jeff. A quick note here about CareStack. Thank you, Dr. Etchison. And so again, we're the co-sponsor along with Darby today. Some of you may know CareStack. Most of you are probably not familiar with our brand. And so real quickly, CareStack is a 100% cloud-based solution for the complete management of the dental practice. And we typically work with 2 types of offices. The first is the ambitious, growing office. They're having success. They want to have that kind of competitive edge, and they see technologies enabling that and just don't know how to get there. They need some help. The second type of practice has grown frustrated and aggravated by managing a multitude of software subscriptions, in some cases 5, 6, or 7, to offer a complete solution for their practice, for things like they need one subscription for patient reminders, another one for eligibility, another one for claims, another one for online forms. The list goes on, and you see the numbers in front of you. And these practice owners are just aggravated, frustrated, losing sleep by managing all these different subscriptions, the cost, the overhead, all the passwords. So if you fall into one of those two buckets, what we ask that you do is either go to carestack.com and book a demo, or hang on after the program's over today for that introductory demo from Dan Hall. So that's the commercial element of our program today. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Etchison, and I just want to remind everyone here that we want this to be interactive, and we're going to manage the Q&A feed. So if you have questions, please ask them, and then we'll set some time aside to address them at the end. So Dr. Etchison, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Well, welcome everybody. First of all, just want to thank CareStack and Darby for making this possible. I'm hoping you're going to get a lot out of this. I know it's good content. I know it works. That's why part of the title was A Proven Way to Blow Your Patients Away. We do this at my practice, and I'm going to show you exactly how we do it. And, patient experience is one of those elusive things that's kind of, what does it really mean? It's all encompassing. There's a lot to it. There's a lot of little things to it, but there's some general principles that if you implement these in your practice, I know you'll see results. So before I get into my content, just want to talk about who am I, who is this guy? If you never heard of me, I graduated from University of Illinois, Chicago in 2009. So that would mean I've been a dentist for almost exactly 12 years now. Coming up on May 9th, I think was my graduation date. I did a startup practice in 2012 in New Lenox, Illinois. New Lenox is like where the suburbs of Chicago end. So if you go like 1 mile south of my practice, it turns into farm fields as you go down into central Illinois. So we are typically, we're technically a Chicago suburb, but it doesn't really feel like we're in Chicago. I mean, if I drive up to Chicago on a Saturday during a non-busy time, it might take me about 35 minutes. If I go during rush hour, like on a Monday through Friday, early in the morning, it might take me an hour and a half to an hour, 45 minutes. So it's just, I'm close to the city, but I am not in the city. We are in a suburb. So there's pictures of my practice there. We are an 11-op office. We started off as a 5-op office. We expanded into 11 ops about a little over 2 years ago now. And one of the cool things we got to do is when we did the startup, we tried to do all bare bones, like not very nice finishes and stuff like that. But when we expanded, we got to do pretty much whatever we wanted. So I got to do some stone walls. You can see in this picture here, some cool lighting, stuff like that. And it was fun to do that expansion. So that's a little bit about my practice. In 2012, 5 team members. 2019, 23 team members. And now in 2021, we've got 40 team members. And since the pandemic, I can't take another photo because some trolls on the internet are going to give me a hard time about everyone being unmasked so close together. So we normally take these in about March or April every year. So we haven't been able to do it since 2019, but I'm really excited for when we do because I've got a good team and I love my team. And one of the cool things about my practice is that we've never really lost anybody. We've continued to grow. So as we've added people, they're not replacing anybody. They're coming because we're growing and we got a great culture. And I think a lot of it has to do with what I'm going to talk about today. So this is useful if you have any kind of turnover in your practice or you think your practice might be lacking in the culture. I wrote 2 books, Dental Practice Hero and Dental Practice Hero 2, the sequel. Sequel's not out yet, but should be out soon. Those are both available on Amazon. And those are more or less just everything about how to run a practice. And then the last thing I'm kind of partnered with Justin Buller here. He's this guy right here. And we've got a website called Dental Business Mentor, which is just a bunch of practice management videos and teach you how to run a great practice. The last thing, which most people have heard of me from, is the Dental Practice Heroes podcast. So that is just about me and just letting you know that I create a lot of, things for dentistry and I love talking about this stuff because I'm passionate about it. And this dentistry for me and the business end of it, I always like the clinical end of it, but the business end of it has been just really something I just really got into. And I learned a lot and I read a lot of books and I went to a lot of seminars and I got some good mentors and stuff like that. And it's just been a passion of mine. So I like talking about this stuff. So let's talk about this picture here. We're looking at a fire drill from a school. And I want you to think about this. So, the alarms go off, there are things that you have to do. Everybody gets outside. Everybody lines up in their specific places. Maybe the teachers come and they count to make sure all the students are there. Maybe there's someone that comes through and checks all the bathrooms to make sure there wasn't a student that wasn't in a class, maybe got stuck in a bathroom, panicking, doesn't know what to do. Who knows, you know? But the object and the goal of this is to get everyone out of the building so that they are safe. But how does everyone know what to do? You know, this is like a critical moment where it could be an emergency where you got to get out. So the reason that they all know where to go is because they talked about it. They practiced it. They got it in writing. This is what we do when this happens. This is the process. This is who is responsible for that. And essentially, this is what a system is. When we talk about systematizing our practice, we talking about what are we doing so that everybody knows, because a lot of us as dental owners are guilty that we just don't really ever talk about it. We, you know, it's verbal maybe, you know, they know what to do. You know, we've talked about it. They know what to do. I don't have to get it in writing, but I can promise you when you do get it in writing and as you grow, it becomes easier and easier for your team to kind of onboard new people because you know what you're doing and you're doing it well. And then the other thing you can do is you can look back and say, what's not going so well? And you can change these systems. So systems, how we do things and why. The expectations are clear. You know, how about less micromanagement? How about if you didn't have to answer everything? I remember when I did my startup practice, we got to the point where I was just so burnt out because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm asking the assistants, are the cases here for tomorrow? Did the cases go out? Did we do our follow-up calls? Did we follow up and see if we could fill some of these holes in these schedules? And you're just bouncing around, like asking everybody. Put it in a system so people know what to do and who's responsible for what. And then there's less micromanagement. You can kind of sit back and let the machine just run on its own. And the thing I want to talk about today is the brand is reinforced. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm going to talk about that a little bit right here. So let's talk about brands. You know, a lot of dentists are like, oh, we don't really have a brand. I don't want, you know, no brand here. I don't want to be like that. That's for like clothes and stuff like that. It's not. Everybody has a brand. And if you don't think you have a brand, you do. And I'm going to tell you why. All right, so let's talk about brands. This is something I do with my team. Every new team member has to understand these principles in these next few slides because they are so critical to providing a good patient experience. So first, let's talk about what is a brand. You know, the Webster's Dictionary, it's a categories of products that are all made by a particular company and have a particular name. When we think of brands, we think of like Nike, Apple, we're thinking of like logos, you know, like brand names and stuff like that. But I want you to talk about like the marketing definition of brand, which is a unique identity, a shorthand way the public thinks about what a business does, produces, serves, or sells, and the way in which they do it. So that's when I say your brand is what your patients and your community think about your office. So if you don't have a brand or you don't define what your brand is, I assure you, you still have a brand. And if you want to know what it is, check your Google reviews. That's your brand. So what does it function for? When we think about brands, they provide order. It allows us to say that this is better than this, you know, like maybe Nikes are better than like starter stuff that you might get at Walmart. It allows us to kind of say that things are better than the other things. It allows us to self-express ourselves. It allows us to say, hey, I'm walking around with my Louis Vuitton or Coach purse or something like that. It says something about who I am as a person. It helps represent me and my values and what I think is important. And, you know, the last part is it helps with purchasing decisions. Let's think about this in a dental office. You know, you might have that high-end fee-for-service dental practice, and some people believe they want to go with that. They want that. But then other people are like, I don't want that. All dentists are the same. I'm going to the place that takes my insurance, that, you know, they think it's a commodity. So this is where branding helps our consumers differentiate and help them essentially decide what they're going to spend their money on. Now, brands are not absolute. They're based on perception. So like I said, it matters what the patients think of our brands. You know, what's better? Android, Windows, you know, Apple, which one's better? Well, you know, it depends who you ask. So brands are not absolute. They exist in the minds of our consumers and in our patients in our dental care setting. So when we're thinking about brands, what do consumers, or in our case, dental patients, what do they want? Everybody just wants consistency. That's it. They want a consistent experience. They want to know that the experience that they got last time, that they're going to get it next time. And if they tell like family and friends about it, they're also going to get the same experience. So when we think about what is the top brands in America, they're consistent. Now, there's a big difference between two types of brands here. So now on the left side of your screen, you're seeing Coca-Cola, Nike, Microsoft. And on the right side, we got the Ritz-Carlton, Starbucks, Marriott. Now, there's a big difference in these two types of brands when it comes to consistency. And the difference is that the ones on the left are product brands, and the ones on the right are service brands. Now, a product brand is essentially, they sell a product. So let's think about how you experience a Coca-Cola. You see the advertising, so the brand image is very controlled by the advertising. You buy it, you open it, and it tastes the same almost everywhere you go. So there's not a lot of variability. It's very easy to have a consistent brand when you're a product brand, because guess what? There's no humans. When we look at the service brands, the experience has humans in it. Humans that didn't get a lot of sleep last night, humans that are going through divorces and have things going on in their life, humans that maybe weren't raised very well by their parents and aren't very polite or very nice people. All this stuff goes into the service brand. So when we think about consistency, a product brand is very easy. But when we look at the service brands, it's a little bit more variable, a lot more variable because of humans. And you think about, where is a dental office? Are we selling a product or a service? We are selling a service. So there's, excuse me. No. There is an idea, sorry. All right, there's an idea called touch points that's really important. So what is a touch point? A touch point is any interaction with a brand. So let's think about the touch points with Coca-Cola. The touch points are going to be when you see the advertisement and when you buy it and experience it. Okay. What about the service brands? It's every person. It's the phone call. It's the way that your office looks, smells. It's the way that you greet your patients, the way you bring them into the room, the way you present finances, the way you perform treatment, everything. Okay. And when we have a positive touch point, meaning that it's a positive experience for the patient, it strengthens our brand. But then when we have that negative one, it kind of erodes the brand. And a very strong principle that you should know is that these positive touch points don't carry as much weight as the negative ones. So you can have a lot of positive touch points, but they still get weighed out by one single off brand. Think about a patient moving through your office and then they get to your treatment coordinator and he or she's having a pretty cranky and not having a good day, and they kind of just dismiss the patient. That could ruin the whole experience just by that one little thing, that one off brand. So that's why it's so critical that everything we do is on brand. So when we move through the dental office, which this is the graph that this is from my book, is that we want people to say, get up to that point where they're yes, and they refer everyone. You know, we might have one negative touch point. We can recover from that. That's what this kind of graph shows. But we don't want to have enough to where they're like, no, and they're going to tell everybody about how horrible their experience was. So, so we're not just going to be consistent, but we're going to be consistently extraordinary. And if we think about how dental offices and how high they set the bar, they do not. Think about your dentist growing up. You probably had a bad experience. Most people have. Think about if you went to go buy, buying a car is kind of something stressful. You're always thinking you're getting ripped off. You gotta kind of negotiate. It's kind of a pain. You got to do some research before you go in. What if you just got a salesman who was like, hey, you know what? I want to be really honest with you. Let's just figure this out. I'll give you a really good price and we'll lock it up. You're like, oh my gosh, I had such a great experience. So, and that's just by one person being nice. So if you're a dentist and you're just nice to your patients, that's going to be a better experience than most people have experienced. But what if we get really clear on every little thing? Man, we're just going to blow them away. So what are some benefits of having this consistency? You're going to get better case acceptance. People feel better, more trust. They'll say yes to more treatment, happier patients, happier staff. We got to talk about staff. When there are systems and we're doing this and we're providing this and the patients are happy and we see it in Google reviews and we feel so good about it, the staff feels good working for a practice like that. They're proud to send their family and friends here. They're like, oh my gosh, change your dentist, come to where I work. It's fantastic here. We get more referrals, more patients, more 5-star reviews, which result in more new patients and ultimately more revenue, which all the great things that come with that, better equipment, more CE you can take on the team, more events you can do with your team. When you've got more revenue, the practice is a lot more fun because you're not just scraping by. So let's talk about the first touch points for a dental practice. That's going to be a referral. That's going to be somebody that is a patient of yours telling somebody else about your office. So they're explaining what the brand is to that person. Now, if they're not getting a referral from a family or friend, they're usually typing it into Google. And this is what happens when you type in New Lenox Dentist into Google. Now, when you look at these top 3 practices here in my area, who are you going to choose? Are you going to check out Hickory Creek Family Dental? They're a little lower. It's 4.8. It's really great. 4.8 right here with Patterson, really great, but 49 reviews, 415 reviews, 5-star, over 1,000 reviews. Who are you going to pick? You're definitely going to pick that. Okay. And then if they can follow it up with a really nice website presentation, why would you even call anybody else? So eventually, our point of this is to generate a phone call. And this is a really important touch point because it is the first human interaction that you're going to have with the patient. So this is a big part where it's critical to start building the case acceptance. You're going to show them how nice you are. You're going to show them how much you take care of them, things like that. And it's a great chance to start reinforcing your brand, letting them know that they found the right place, that they're going to love this dental office. So one big thing for patient experience, and just a big thing for every office, is to do phone training. You've got to do phone training. I know you think your team answers the phone great. Listen to it. You will be surprised. And we do audits at my office where we listen to phone calls together. I tell everybody there is no perfect phone call because it does not exist. There is always something to improve on. But if you're not listening and you're not telling and you're not setting what the expectation is, you're kind of just flying by the seat of your pants. So do that. So they're saying things like, our office is great. Our doctor is great. You're going to love it here. You're going to love the way we take care of people. You're going to love our technology. This is when we start telling the patient who the brand is. And if you think that doesn't matter, there was a Fifth Third Bank study where they just had some advertisements about how good their customer service was. And then they played it in one area and they didn't play it in another area. And they rated the customer service via their customers. And they rated them on those 2 different branches. The one that was in the area about the advertisements, whether the people knew they saw it or not, they rated it higher. There's something about telling the patient about who you are and what you do. So do some phone training with your team. That's huge. I'm going to get a lot more detailed about other things, but I don't want to go too much detail on that, but phone training is huge. Let's talk about the weight of your waiting room. How does this waiting room look? Okay. It looks pretty nice. I mean, we got some teeth on there, some smaller kind of waiting room chairs. It kind of looks like a doctor's office, it's like that. But, what does that feel like? What is the impression that gives? What does it feel like to go in here where I know we have these little tiny chairs here, but most of the stuff over here, this is all like Value City, Wayfair, Amazon. They're not expensive chairs, but they feel different and they say something different about your brand. So, one thing that we don't often do as doctors is we don't even go and sit in the waiting room and see what it's like. We don't see what it feels like. What does it smell like? What are the sounds that they hear? What is going on in there? So you need to sit in there and do that. A great exercise to do at your team is musical chairs. And I do this with my team probably once every 6 months. We'll do it at a meeting. Everyone will go to a different spot in the office with a little pen and paper, and we'll sit there for 2 minutes and they'll write everything that they see that we can improve upon. That might be nicks on the floorboards. It might be some webs on the ceiling, things like that. All these things matter, but then we make a master list of all the things we can if we have to hire somebody to come and paint or patch holes, they come and we do it because the stuff matters. And you might not think these little things matter. I assure you they do. All right, this is another, we talked about the brand stuff that I want my team to know. This is another thing that's very important for them to know. And this comes from an article called The Psychology of Waiting. This is all about, they did a lot of studies on waiting lines, but these are things that we can apply in our practice. So the first one is that occupied time is shorter than unoccupied time. That means if you give your patient something to do while they're waiting, the wait will seem shorter. Now, right now, a lot of us are doing mobile check-ins, so there's not much control over that. But when they come back into our waiting rooms, let me go back to this photo here. So we've got a TV that's on the wall closest to where the picture is being taken from. That just got like dished on there. We usually have HD TV. But up here on this wall, we've got a slideshow of our team and their families and our outings that we do together, and then mixed in with some before and after of cosmetic cases. But we've got that personal content, gives them something else to do, magazines, stuff like that. A lot has changed with the pandemic, but there's things that you can do to make the wait seem shorter. Now, people want to get started. That means that get them going. Get them in the chair and get started. Now, the doctor might not be able to come in right now, but you can go over the forms. You can get the topical anesthetic going on. You could take blood pressure. You can go over financials. You can go over the post-op instructions. They want to get rolling. So don't let them wait until the doctor is ready. Get them in the room and start doing something. You can have a hygienist come in and get the patient numb if that's the case, if that you can do that in your state. If it's a hygiene patient, you can have an assistant seat them in a different room, start taking the x-rays, get them rolling. Anxiety makes wait seem longer. Are our patients anxious? Yes. So there's not much you can do about that. It's just going to be like that. But that's something you should know, that the waits are going to seem longer in an anxious environment. Uncertain waits are longer than known finite waits. Now, one time I went to a doctor's office, and I'll ask you, have you ever done this where you check in and you sit down and it's like 15 minutes past your appointment time and you're wondering if they forgot about you? And then you're sitting there and you're kind of torn. You're like, oh man, should I go up to the desk and see if they forgot? I don't want to be a pain in the butt patient. No, I'll just sit here for a few more minutes and just wait. Maybe they'll come and get me. And then you're sitting there waiting. You're like, oh, maybe I should go up to the desk. What does that feel like? Where you're sitting there wondering, you're starting to think about all the things you have to do in the day. And you're like, gosh, I don't want to get stuck here. I don't want to have to reschedule. Maybe they forgot. Maybe I should go talk. When you have a patient that you're behind on, you need to go out into the waiting room or text them if they're in their car and let them know that you're running behind. Let them know that we know you are here. We are just running 10 minutes behind. So when you tell them how behind you are, that uncertain wait turns into a finite wait. They know I'm here. They're running behind. And then they can just chill out and get on their phone and not worry about, do they go up to the desk or not? So always do that.
Hey, Dr. Etchison, real quick, this
Yes,
is a good opportunity just to remind our audience that we want this engagement from you. And so I know Dr. Etchison has mentioned, you can use the chat feature if you want to weigh in on something. If you've got a question, please use the question and answer button and we'll make sure to address it. So sorry to interrupt.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. So unexplained waits are longer than explained waits. So you can't just say we're running 10 minutes behind. You could say, hey, we're running about 10 minutes behind. We're just finishing up. We got to turn the room over and we're going to come and get you. So it just feels better to the patient. They will perceive it better if they have an explanation of why you're behind. You don't have to get into like what happened. You don't have to say, a doctor tried to squeeze in a crown to hit his production goal or something like that. It doesn't need to be like that, but just explain a little bit more explanation than just how behind you are. Unfair waits are longer than equitable waits. And what this means is that when you've got a patient that shows up 15 minutes early for their appointment, and then somebody shows up 15 minutes later, right at their appointment time, and they go back and they're like sitting there like, wait, what? Whoa, I've been here longer. When you have a patient come in early, you need to let them know, hey, you're 15 minutes early. I'm going to check in the back and see if they can get you back early. But if not, we'll probably just see you right at your scheduled appointment time. Because a lot of our patients, they think, I got some other stuff to do. I'll show up early and maybe they can get me back early. It doesn't work like that in a dental office. So you got to let them know when they're early. And then the more valuable the service, the longer the customer will wait. I mean, we see this with iPhones. I mean, how long do people wait for those? So, all right, let's talk about every workday is a play. This is Donna Marie Asbury, and she played her role in the musical Chicago for almost, I think, over 20 years or something like that, something like 10,000 shows. So do you think like maybe at show 5,000, she started just slacking, getting lazy, getting sick of it, and everyone's like, oh, she sucks, but it's okay. I mean, she's 5,000 shows, give her a break. No, they want the best performance ever. Just like when you take your kids to Disney World or Disneyland, you want those people, those princesses, to get in character and do that for your kids. So I don't care if you're having a bad day or whatnot, you need to show up like it's a big play every single day like this woman did. So think about that. What is the play that we are putting on for our patients every day? And does it even have like a script? Can we script it? Can we plan what we're going to do? Can we plan our patient experience? Yeah, you bet we can. So there's something that I call movement sequences in my first book. And this is essentially the script for the play. Now, I don't want to say script, even though I'm saying it. This is the script for the play, but this is not scripting. This is not telling people exactly what to say. There are general ideas in these things in this document I'm about to show you. But I want each of my team members to make it their own. So this pretty much says, how do we put on our performance? And I can't tell you how many of my friends have come in my office and they're like, dude, everybody at your office is amazing. Like, how do you find so many great people? It's like every person you meet just like blows me away. And they don't realize all the little things that happen behind the scenes and how like scripted this interaction is that we're saying certain things and we're doing certain things because it gives our patients the best experience. And then like we talked about, consistency. We can get consistent when we write it in a document. We say, this is what we do. And we can take all the best practices and we can add to the experience. We can take all the things that we tried and it didn't really work. It didn't hit over well with the patients. We can take that out. But it's critical that this needs to be in writing. And I really think you got to get your team involved in this and help collaborate this. Our document that we have in our practice, we've redone about 3 or 4 times. Right now, I think it's pretty good. I don't think we need to do anymore. We've got this pretty honed in, but it's something that you want to revisit and update. So I'm going to go through this document and I want to get through this whole thing. And I want to get through a few other like points at the end of this. So I might have to hurry up through this because I want to get through the whole thing. Check in. This is our movement sequence. You got to stand, smile, and greet the patient. You're going to stand up and you're going to say, hello, Mrs. Jones. You're going to welcome them and address them by their name, even if we've never met them before. You know, you should be taking pictures of all your patients. The way we do it at my practice is we scan their license for insurance verification, and we just crop their license picture. So, but if it's a new patient, we don't know who it is. We've never met them before, but you know there's a new patient on the schedule. Say, hi, Mrs. Jones, how are you? If Mrs. Smith is coming at the same time, it's like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not Mrs. Jones. Oh my gosh, you must be Mrs. Smith. You know, you can do that. That's totally fine, but it means something to use someone's name and greet them like that. All right, so they would ask for the ID insurance card. They give them the paperwork. Now, this is something I love. We got to point to the coffee bar in the fridge. We say, hey, there's coffee right here. Please feel to make yourself a cup if you want. There's some water down there. Please feel free to grab some if you want. Make yourself at home. The bathroom is right over here. If you need to use it, please just walk right through those doors and go in. Because they might be, if you don't say these things, they might be sitting there. Do I need to ask to make coffee? Does somebody make me coffee? Do I have to pay for the water bottles? Are they free? Do I have to ask someone for a bathroom key, or do I have to ask permission to use the bathroom? I don't want them to even think about it. We've already addressed these things before they even had to worry about it. After the patient returns the forms, thank the patient, tell them you will let them know and back when they are ready, they will come get them. All right. This is our clinical movement sequence for new patients. Now, before getting the patient, oh my gosh, you know, my team hates me for this, but I'm such a stickler with it. You spot check everything. Everything in the room needs to look clean. There is no alginate on the floor. There is not a paper point on the floor, okay? The floor can't have any debris. Now, the provider chairs, where do you put your chairs when you walk a patient in the room? A lot of offices just wherever they were when we walked out of the room, right? How about we put that chair in the corner so that 1, the patient doesn't have to move it when they come in the room, or 2, when the provider comes in the room, they don't have to slide it across the floor. It's already there. The room is set. It looks great. It's ready. Now we set our TVs to HDMI 2. That's an input. We have a screen in there where they can watch TV while we're working on. We also have a screen on the ceiling. But we found that when we bring a patient back, that is distracting. So we switch that input to the computer input, which does 2 things. It mutes the TV and it shows a logo of our practice on the screen. So there's no distractions. All right, we get the patient. We open the door and we enter the waiting room. We need to enter the waiting room. Think about when you see somebody you like at the practice. Do you just like stand and say, come to me, come on? No, you walk towards that person. All right. If you don't like them very much, you might be like, hey, come over here. And we might just like wave across the room. But it's important that we are creating movement towards that person. Now, we're not going to walk all the way out to where they're sitting. You know, and this is something that we've tried and we thought it was strange. So we changed this, but we want to be moving towards them and we want to meet them in the middle. We address them by their name. If they're older than us, we decided 12 years older, you know, my team just wanted it. I'm like, I don't know, they're old. If they're older, let's call them Mr. or Mrs., sir, things, stuff like that. But they wanted a number. So we came up with 12. I don't think you really need to get a number. If they're a certain amount older than you, just say Mr. or Mrs. People appreciate that. So people like to be called sir, especially the older generation loves that. You introduce yourself and you touch the patient. I don't care if it's a pandemic, touch the patient. I know it's weird to shake hands now. Don't get me started. Anyway, so this can be a handshake. It can be just a touch on the shoulder. It might be a little weird during this pandemic stuff, but I want there to be some sort of physical touch with the patient. And that's usually used to be a handshake. And then we have the patient follow us to the room. We do a little small talk on the way. And then we stick out our arm and we guide the patient into the right side of the operatory. Now, what does that mean? With mine are rear delivery. So there's two entrances. If I'm facing the chair, there's two entrances on each side. I want my team to stick their arm and say, okay, come on in here. They're going to let them know where to go. And they're going to come around into the other chair and they're going to take all the patient's belongings, because I don't want my patient to sit there and be like, oh, where do I put my stuff? Or I don't want them to like step over the chair to try to hang it on a hook, fall, kick over an air purifier. I don't know. Just ask the patient. It's very important. I don't want my patient to have any anxiety about what to do or when to do it. We're going to take their stuff and we're going to put it somewhere that it belongs, so they don't even have to ask us where it belongs. We ask the patient to have a seat then. Have a seat. Now, patients in the chair. This is the reintroduction, the framing, and the time estimate. Okay. Again, my name is Beatrice. I'm one of the hygienists here. I will be with you for the majority of the visit today. We have you scheduled until 2 p.m. Is that good for you? Or is there a certain time you need to be out of here by? That is so critical. We let them know how long they'll be here, and we let them give them an opportunity to tell us if they had a different expectation. Because if you don't, and your patient's on their lunch break and they only planned an hour for this and you plan on having them for like 2 hours, then they're going to start getting fussy, looking at their watch. They're going to be 45 minutes in. And then like when they have 10 minutes before they got to be like, I'm sorry, how much longer is this going to take? I have to leave in 10 minutes. And you're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't get to do anything, you know? So how does that first experience go? We botched it. So we need to tell them, this is how long we're going to have you. Do you need to be out of here by a certain time? And if they do need to be out quickly, we will, adjust accordingly. We'll put on the brakes. We might skip some photos, but we'll make sure we get them out on time. We do our icebreaker. How did you hear about us? That's the easiest one to do. Just, how did you hear about us? They'll tell us if they were referred or they Googled us or whatnot. It's very simple. Then I want you to tell my team to tell them about the office. Remember, I talked about this Fifth Third bank study. Let me tell you about our brand. This is who we are. I want them to say 3 things. They can say whatever the heck they want, but these are the 3 examples we give. We've been open for 9 years. We really pride ourselves on being the most high-tech office in the area. We have 5 outstanding doctors and try to be one dental home for you, which means that we try to complete all the needed procedures in-house without you having to go to other offices. Those are 3 things that I like. My team says a whole mess of different things, but I say, I want you to say 3 things. And the reason I know they do this is because I listen outside the rooms when I walk by and I hear them, and then I compliment them. I say, I love those 3 things you said. That sounded so good. So say 3 things to set what your brand is, to define your brand with the patient. It makes a difference. Okay, we're going to go through the chart, medical history. We're going to do an outline of today's visit. We're going to tell what we're going to do. We're going to get all our records. We're going to ask if there's any questions. And then here's a nice one. Ask permission to lean the patient back. And then ask if there's anything they can do to make it more comfortable. Permission to lean back, they're going to look at you like, what are you talking about? Of course you can lean me back. But that little touch point that you were polite enough to ask for that permission, it makes a difference. And it sets the tone of, this is an office that cares about the experience of the patients. So do that little thing, and it makes a big difference. Ask if there's anything you can do to make them more comfortable. Yeah, the headrest is kind of little, move it for them. All this plastic behind you is all crinkled up on my back, or I want to take my ponytail out. Give them an opportunity to get comfortable. We want them to be comfortable, right? Okay, moving on. Diagnostics. We do 3 photos. We do intraoral photos. We do probing depths. Okay, well, let me go back to the probing depths, because this stuff I'm kind of breeze through pretty quick. Frame what the numbers mean, say what they mean, and read them out loud with the patient so that they can hear them. I think most of us do that, but you need to do that. I can't tell you how many times we've done that with patients. They're like, I've never had this done before. And either there are offices that do not probe their patients, or they just don't read them out loud and they don't even know that they did it. We do our necessary x-rays. Then we do the cleaning. We discuss treatment while we're cleaning. I love when my hygienist co-diagnose with me. That's a big part of my practice. And then I want them to present the findings. I want my hygienist to sit the patient up, go through the x-rays on the TV. I want them to go through all the intraoral photos and talk about what things that we may recommend based on their findings, okay? I know they're not allowed to diagnose. I'm not asking them to diagnose. They are presenting to the patient treatment that the doctor may or likely recommend. I have a feeling doctor might recommend a crown here. I want them to talk about it. I always want to be the second opinion. I don't never want to be the first opinion. I don't want to walk in and tell the patient what they need and they're wondering why this person's been in their mouth for almost 2 hours and didn't mention that they saw this. That's weird to me. The hygienist should mention they saw it, and I should come in, and I come in and I agree with them. All right. Any questions at the end? They went through all the findings. We ask if they need to use the washroom. Right now is now good. Did you need to use the washroom? Now would be a good time when I go get the doctor. So a lot of people do. Or you say, can I get you anything, water or coffee? They always say no for the most part, but we offer it to them. That's another one of those little touch points that makes a difference. Offer it. Wow, they really care about me here. So doctor comes in or doctor gets fetched in the hallway. They will say, they'll explain what doctor they're going to see. And they're always going to compliment the doctor they're going to see. Hey, today you're going to be seeing Dr. Etchison. He's great. You're going to love him. Always endorse the next person in the chain. Our patients might come through and interact with 6 or 7 people in one office visit. Endorse the next person every single time. All right. So we're going to brief the doctor in the hallway. They're going to tell me, what did they present? Is there anything else that I really need to talk about? Like, I talked to them about their gums and recommended SRPs and they kind of didn't really see them on board with it. So you need to talk about that a little bit more. And then I always want my hygienist to give me something to talk about on a personal level. Are they going to Vegas? Do they have what do they like to talk about? Because I want something to go in with. It's like when you have a dinner party and introduce 2 people, say, hey, this is John and this is Paul. And hey, John, Paul is a dentist and he's got a big practice in New Lenox. And John, he works out of whatever and he does this. So give him something to start off with. It's hard to meet people and you don't want to dig and dig and dig for information. If they have it, give it to me. I'll come in and I'll say it. I'll say, hey, I heard you like to, who knows? Are you going to Vegas? Stuff like that. All right. Doctor comes in. We shake the hand. We don't do that right now. We used to. Now we're not doing, we're just doing this little wave like, I hate it. Anyway, eye contact. I don't know how many doctors, when we have rear delivery, just go and they kind of peek over the patient's shoulder. Get your butt in front of the patient. Get out there and sit on the chair and look at them. It's like we're so nervous. We're so scared. Just get in front of the patient. So welcome them to the practice. We switched that TV back to the logo screen because when I'm talking to the patient, it would be behind me. I don't want anything distracting. Even if it's muted, there's still distracting pictures. I don't want anything to be distracted. I want the patient to focus on me. So our icebreaker, I always lead with what the hygienist told me in the hallway. So I always get to know them, build some rapport, get to know them personally before I start talking about teeth. And then I ask them, what are their goals for, Mrs. Jones, tell me what your goals are for your mouth and your smile. And that's a weird question, but they've never thought about what their goals are, but they will tell you what their goals are. And you can relate that back to what you're going to recommend for treatment. And then I always ask them, are you someone that is more proactive or are you more reactive? Like proactive people want to take care of problems before they become problems. When we start to see something happening or we want to protect a tooth, would they want to act? A reactive person just kind of wants to fix things as they break. Which one would you say you are? I say 90% of the people will say proactive, but I want them to say that, because I want to bring that back when we talk about what's recommended and what we think. And you mentioned that you want to be more proactive. This would prevent doing X, Y, whatever. So that's how I do it. And then I ask them if there's something in particular they want to focus on, because if they came in because some tooth or they don't like the color or something, I want to make sure that's a top priority for me, because I don't want them to be like, I went in for whitening and all this stuff and they said they wouldn't do anything until they did this. So I don't like putting people in what I call perio prison. I don't like putting people in wisdom tooth prison. Like we can't do anything until we get your wisdom teeth out, because guess what? You're not going to do anything. You tell a patient you're not doing anything until your wisdom teeth are out. Guess what? You're probably never going to see that patient again. I want to know what is their chief thing that they want to focus on so that I put it as a high priority on the treatment plan. Okay. Doctor exam. Let's see, I'm running out of time. I want to get through this. All right. So I go through this. When I go through the x-rays with the patient, I always have them on the screen. We go through them together. I point out things. Here's your sinus. Here's your hard palate. Here's your earrings on the panel, stuff like that. All the white stuff all the white things you see are fillings, so I show them what we're looking for. We're looking for some darker areas. Let's see if we can find any. Here's your jaw joint. I want to involve them in the x-rays. I don't want to spend a lot of time on the x-rays because I've already looked at them outside the room and the hygienist has already looked at them as well. So this is like a third set of eyes on it. This is the third time that someone's seen these. But then I look at the bite wings. These are the smaller x-rays. These what we're trying to do is check for cavities in between the teeth or underneath restorations that we can't see visually with our eyes. Let's look. Okay, that looks good. Next one looks good. Okay, cool. Not much to talk about. Or like, hey, here's something to talk about. Let me show you what I see. And then I ask, is it okay for me to lean you back and take a look? I asked permission again. They're like, why does everyone ask me permission? Do they think I'm like some kind of jerk that doesn't want to be leaned back and take a look? No, they don't think that. They're just like, wow, these are really nice people. So it makes a difference. We do the exam. I always explain to them, hey, I'm going to be calling things out to the hygienist. Don't worry about what we're saying. It's not bad. I'll sit you up and I'll tell you everything that we found. So just ignore all this, because otherwise they're sitting there, we're calling out things. They're like, oh my gosh, there's so many cavities in my mouth. That's not the case. We do a Velscope. I think this is great for patient experience, but you need to explain you're doing an oral cancer screening. I can't tell you how many patients have come into my practice and be like, my cousin went somewhere else and they got an oral cancer screening. And I'm like, dummy, we did one last time. What the heck are you talking about? But we didn't tell them. So they didn't even know we did it. They're like, oh, they shine some light on my teeth. They don't know what you're doing. Add value to the appointment by letting them know what you're doing there. All right, sit up, we present the findings. We need to explain risk factors. We use visuals. We speak in layman's term. I kind of talked about what we say. I like this feeler statement with presenting treatment. I don't like to say, do you have any questions? Because the answer is almost always no. Do you have any questions means I'm done with you. Are you also done with me? You will almost always get a no. Sometimes you get a question, but for the most part, you don't. Try this instead. What kind of questions do you have? Tell me what questions you have, because that's open-ended. They will come up with something. Tell me what you're thinking or feeling right now. Because if I feel like they're not really buying it, they're not like, oh, I don't know, this doesn't, I'm bored, or maybe they're worried about costs. After I explain that to all of you, Mrs. Jones, I know we went through a lot. Tell me what you're feeling. Because I want to know, I'm worried about money, or, it doesn't hurt. I don't know if you need to do it. You'll get an objection that you can now address. But if you just say, do you have any questions? You're going to have no idea where the patient stands. And you're just going to be sitting outside the room with your fingers crossed, hoping they say yes to your treatment coordinator. And then we close. We let them know that we're going to sit down with the treatment coordinator to discuss the fees and copays and all that stuff. And I'm saying, you're going to love Justine, our treatment coordinator. She's the best. Remember, we're always endorsing the next person in the chain. And then I give them this empathy hope statement. I always say positive. Hey, you know what? I know there's a lot that we need to do, but you're going to get healthy. And after that, it's going to be only maintaining, and it's going to be easy. So it's going to be a little bit of investment up at front. But the hardest part was what you did today, is that you showed up. I want to give them something positive. People are embarrassed when they come and see us. So I want them to feel good about what they did. Even though they didn't get anything done, all they did was come to find out what there is. I want them to feel like they made progress and they took that big, important step. All right. I thank them and I say, I appreciate you so much for coming to the practice. And I thank them. I use their name. So that's our movement sequence. That is something you need to do with your team. Get it in writing. I know I'm coming to time, Jim. I want to finish these next two slides. I'm going to do them really, really quick. All right.
Yeah, go for it. Then we have a couple of questions, but yeah, they're tracking fine.
All right, cool. So distractions, vacuuming, conversations around sterile. You need to pay attention to this stuff. Nobody runs the vacuum in my practice if someone's a new patient exam. We just don't do it. So pay attention to this stuff. It's distracting. Lost patients. I don't like lost patients in my practice, and where they're lost. They don't know what to do. Remember when they come in the room, we take their stuff, we tell them where to sit, we put their stuff there. If we're going to walk them down the hall to the pano, we're going to say, hey, we got to go down the hallway and we got to take this x-ray. You can leave all your stuff here because we're going to come right back. Otherwise they're like, do I get my stuff? Do I leave it here? Like, what's going on? I don't want anyone to feel lost. They need to know what to do. Relational notes. My patients think I have the greatest memory in the world, because we write down where they're going on vacation, what their grandkids like to do. We write that in the chart. I don't know where you want to write it in your chart, but it's so critical to building those relationships. Post-op calls. I do not do post-op calls personally, but my team will call people on the next day if they've had a root canal extraction, implant, ortho start, big stuff, so they'll call and just check in how they're doing. And that's just like the icing on the cake. They had this great experience. They love you. They're telling people about you. And we've called patients. They're like, oh my gosh, I was just telling my friend about what a great experience I had at your office right now. And now you're on the phone with me. This is crazy. And then they hang up. They're like, that was the office I just told you about. They just called to see how I was doing. So little things. Asking permission to lean back. We talked about that. Do it. I love using big words. I'll say, oh, that's fantastic. Oh, that's outstanding. Excellent. Oh, dynamite. Like, I know it's cheesy, and my staff rolls their eyes and they make fun of me when we go out at functions and we're drinking. They'll make the words and laugh about it. But I really think there's positive energy in these words, and there's nothing wrong with using them. And you're a dentist. Everyone thinks you're weird anyway. Just be weird. Just embrace it. All right. We offer water and coffee. I said that, if I'm doing something like I just finished a crown or something like that, and we're going to scan and do the CEREC, I'll say, hey, can I get you water or coffee? And sometimes they say yes, and I have my assistant go get it. I'm not going to go get it. Post-op instructions. We always want to say everything went great. When you're in the hospital and someone you love is behind those doors, when that doctor comes out, the first thing you want to hear is that everything went great. So I say, hey, we got that filling done. Everything went great. Everything always goes great. Of course it went great, So it went great. I want the patient to know that it went great. I want you to know that no one remembers the middle. So if you're in a hurry and you got to step on the gas to get caught up in your schedule, when you walk into that room, slow it down. But then when you're doing that procedure, you start flying, like your assistant's like throwing stuff, you're bouncing it off the walls. And then when you're done, you got to slow down again and give those post-op instructions, not seem like you're in a hurry there, because no one will remember the middle, how fast you move. They'll just think you're super efficient. But if you're fast in the beginning or the end, they're going to remember that. I like to set low expectations about prognoses of teeth. This filling was really deep. You're going to probably have some cold sensitivity. I'm not going to say, it's really shallow. You probably won't have any cold sensitivity. I want them to think the worst case scenario. This root canal, a lot of people will have pain and soreness on this tooth for like almost up to 2 weeks. But, I want them to know this stuff. I want to tell them they're going to be in a lot of pain, because sometimes they are, and we can't predict that. But if we set those low expectations that they're going to be in a lot of pain and they're not, we're heroes. If we don't set that expectation and they are in a lot of pain, we're villains. So we want to be heroes. All right, last slide. Suction and curing light apologies. If you suction the patient's lip or you bump their teeth with the curing light, you better say sorry. That's all I say. I tell my team, you got to acknowledge that. They're like, dude, that person just almost broke my front tooth and didn't even say anything. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to hit you in the tooth. Acknowledge it. Makes a difference. We talk about our materials, how awesome our impression materials are, how awesome our scanner is. Look at the lights on our hand pieces, stuff like that. We take it for granted, but there's a lot of cool stuff that we have in dentistry. Endorsing the next person, and whenever someone says like, oh, Pam was great, the hygienist, I go, oh my gosh, she's the best. She cleans my teeth. Everyone in my practice cleans my teeth. Okay. Pam, I don't care if it's Pam, Erica, Lauren, they all clean my teeth. If the patient says something nice about the hygienist, I go, oh yeah, she's the best. She cleans my teeth too. Cause it just feels good. They're like, oh man, I got the best hygienist. That's who cleans the doctor's teeth. Cool. Pointing out features on the pano. So we want to point out everything that we see, and just so that they're involved in that. Can you change the x-ray colors? I love doing this. And just flip it to that colorized. You can't see anything on it. It doesn't do anything. It's the most worthless feature ever, but the patients think it's freaking cool. I don't even say what we're doing. I just switch it and then I switch it back and it just looks cool. I think it leaves an impression like, wow, this place is really high tech, but we know that's the most useless feature in our x-ray software. Endorse the next touch point. Proper handoffs and transitions. This is another thing you got to get clear on with your team. When we hand off from the back to the front or the front to the back, what is the information we want and what do we say? So I'll get clear on that stuff. All right. I know that last part was kind of quick. This is my contact info. If you want to reach out to me via email, please do that. Dentalpracticeheroes.com is my website. Dental Business Mentor is more material like that I just talked about there. And those are my Instagram handles. So if you want to reach out to me, please do so. But let's move on to the question and answer, Jim.
Yeah, great. And thank you, Paul. Leave this slide up so that people have the information here.
Sure.
Let's start with a question from Brenda in the audience. How do you train new team members to implement these items you are suggesting? Even though we want to incorporate these ideas, how can we be sure the team is doing this, especially multi-location practices?
Yeah, so multi-location is a little bit tricky because you can't be everywhere at once. So you have to train your leaders at the multi-locations. But this is, like I said, this is part of being on my team. That brand stuff, I give them a document that talks about that brand stuff. I also have a presentation I'll do if we hired more than one people and I just talk to them all at once. But it's something I say, hey, I need you to know this. And I'm going to sit down with you and I'm going to ask you questions because everybody needs to know that. So this is one of the benefits of putting it in a document. In my practice, when we have a new hygienist come on, so like we're at 40 people, my hygiene lead will go through this with them. And then when we have our hygiene meetings, every now and then we'll go through it as a team just to kind of refresh it because you got to stay on top of it. But how do you know that they're doing it? You don't always know because you can't know everything that's happening in the practice. But when you're walking down the hallways, you are listening. And this is one of the things I have the benefit of doing because I'm only seeing patients about 2 days a week. So I have these days where I can work with and train my team. And you can do this as well. At your practice, it's a little bit more difficult if you, it's a little bit more difficult if you don't have that admin time, but you just got to do it. And if it's important to you as the leader, it will be important to your team. So I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. And just something you spoke about really resonated with me about low expectations. Like when I fly a lot for work during normal times, and I can't stand it when the pilot tells me it's going to be a smooth flight.
Yeah.
And then it's the bumpiest flight I've ever had.
I just had a smooth flight yesterday. It was not smooth at all. Coming into
Chicago,
Chicago,
say, hey, we're going to have some bumps, and then it's smooth, and you're like, oh wow. he did a
Yeah.
great job. So it really resonates.
Yeah, no,
Thanks for
it's
sharing
so
that.
true. And I think we really set ourselves up to really screw a lot of things up in dentistry, because we do this shallow feeling. We go, no big deal. You ain't gonna feel nothing. It was a piece of cake. And then
So
they
let's
do.
get a couple more of these questions in real quickly. I put a poll out there for the people that want to stay after Dr. Etchison's done, and we award the CE code. And again, the CE code is going to be at the top of the hour, so you have to be patient. Next question is from Stephen Beard. How do you approach if a patient says they cannot be leaned back when you ask to lean them back?
Yeah, and you want to tell them, like, dude, I do this all day long. And if every one of my patients do that, I wouldn't be able to do this career for very long. Here's what we do. I ask them how far back they're comfortable going, and I stand. I will do that procedure standing, because you can't do it sitting. You do it standing, and you just do it. It stinks. My grandmother is one of those people, like, she can't go back even the littlest bit. I'm like, Grandma, how do you sleep? She goes, in my bed. I'm like, this makes no sense. What are you talking about? Like, let me lean you back. She doesn't let me lean her back, so we stand up and do it. And if you have an older patient population, that you do that quite a bit. But I found ergonomically for me, if I'm standing and I can get them at about 45 degrees, that's usually pretty comfortable for me. But it's about finding, you let them know, like, hey, my back's kind of bad. Like, I got to get you back a little bit. Can you let me know how far you can go? Like, what's comfortable? Let's meet in the middle. And most people will let you put them further than you would if you didn't ask them that. So it's just all open communication, being honest with the patient, but also you have to take that into account. A lot of people say they can't lean back, and you can't just force them. You can't be like, sucks to be you. Here we go. You just can't do that. So yeah, I'll do this procedure standing.
Okay, well, thanks for expanding on that. From Cindy in our audience, does the person that made the appointment also tell the patient how much time is scheduled for their new patient appointment? And then again, how much time do you schedule you personally in your practice for a new patient exam?
Good question. So yes, that will be part of the phone call. That's part of our new patient phone call. So we also have a document for new patient phone calls. I like documenting. So we have a document that says, like, these are the things that we want you to say. And that's one of the things you will tell people this on the phone. You'll be here for an hour and a half, 2 hours, but they don't listen to it. They forget. So that's okay. I don't need them to sign a document saying that they understand that, but yeah, we're going to say that as much as possible. New patients in my office are an hour and a half right now. So we used to do an hour 10, and we were doing an hour 20. And now since the pandemic hit, we're at an hour and a half. And I think that's a comfortable level, but I promise you, my team is doing so much in that hour and a half, and they are very comfortable doing it. And like I said, my hygienists do so much. I mean, they are taking all the diagnostics, they're cleaning the teeth, they are sitting the patient up and spending 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes talking about the x-rays, so that when I personally go in for a new patient exam, I'm usually in and out of there about maybe, 7-8 minutes. They're
Okay.
pretty quick, but it's because my hygienist did all the work up front.
And I think this next question from Lauren kind of piggybacks off this. So it's you answer the question about how long are your appointments for new patients, but Lauren mentioned she works at different offices at different lengths, and she feels like either have a shorter time and they're rushing, but don't lose as much money, time or money, if the patient doesn't show up, or you get a longer time and then run the risk of losing more money if the patient doesn't show. So how do you strike that balance, I think, is what Lauren's trying to ask.
Well, there's things we can do so that the patient does show. In my office, our no-show rate's about 6%. So it's pretty low. People are going to no-show. People are going to last minute cancel. So that's like a big conversation. I think the conversation is, how do we get people to show up, rather than how do we minimize the damage when they don't show. For me at my office, and I guess it depends on the leader of the practice where they put their value. My value in my hygienist is not their dollar per hour, what they're cranking out. If that was my practice, we would shorten up those appointments. My value with my hygienist is what they present to the patients, and what they quote, diagnose, and how they make the patient feel. So that requires an hour and a half, and that's where we found balance. Now, does my team want 2 hours for new patient exams? Sure. I'd like to have 3 hours to do a molar root canal, but I only give myself an hour and 15 minutes. So it's nice to have extra time, but there's got to be reasonable. You got to be reasonable. I mean, it's got to make sense financially to some extent. We can't be losing money on things like that. But like I said, it's going to be different depending on what we're doing. Now, if my hygienists weren't sitting the patient up and going through stuff, I don't think we'd have any problem doing it in an hour and 10 minutes. But that comes from the leader. And every time that we've increased the time, it wasn't because I was like, you know what, I'm going to give you girls more time because I'm just such a nice guy. It was because they were coming to me like, hey, we're trying to do all the stuff we talked about doing, but we just don't have enough time to do it. Like, I wish if we could have a little more time, we could do this. Hygienists are going to produce maybe, $120 to $250 an hour. All the hygienists combined in the office are going to represent about 30% of the revenue. I'd rather have better case acceptance because we give them more time.
Okay.
Because we're going to do that we'll make that revenue in the doctor chair. But yeah, that's my feeling. And it's a tough situation. I know that's an issue for a lot of practices.
Sure. We probably have time for one more question. I do want to, there's a lot of questions about how do I get this material. A couple of things here. This is the intellectual property of Dr. Etchison. So I can make this available. I'm sure if you email him, he might be able to give you some follow-up items. I do want to mention there's some good news for CareStack clients out there. Dr. Etchison is one of our faculty members. And very shortly, you're going to be able to access learning at no charge within CareStack University. So for our clients, you're going to have access to that. And another reason for all of you out there that are sitting on the fence about implementing CareStack, this is another reason to join. You get thought leaders like Dr. Etchison from our university. So I want to mention that as well. One more question here came through the chat bot. Do you allocate time for role playing specifically for your team members?
We do. We do role play. So we have a hygienist meeting once a month. My lead hygienist she'll sit down and do a one-on-one with every hygienist once a month as well. I will do one-on-ones probably with every single person on my team about once a quarter. If I probably got real, might be once every 6 months, but I try to do it once a quarter. We have a monthly meeting that's 2 hours long. And then every 3 months, we have an all-day meeting that usually goes about 5-6 hours long. And then we all go out like to the bar or do something fun together. But yeah, we have time for role playing and the training. I mean, it's just like anything else you want to do well. It's all in the training. And I think one of the big things that I've realized as an owner of a practice is that my value to help the most people possible is by me training and mentoring my team. It's not by me cutting crowns with my own hands. So you are providing a lot of value to your practice and to your patients by taking the time to make these things important in your practice.
Yeah, thank you for speaking to that.